Welcome to the creative community. I'm your host, David Starkey, and my guest this time is poet Melinda Palacio. Melinda, welcome.
Thank you.
It's been a while since you've been on the show. I'm really excited to have you back. And of course, you're here in large measure because you are our new Poet Laureate for Santa Barbara. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, exciting. We're going to hear a little bit about your background and hear some poems. We don't have your guitar. The next time we'll do that, but we'll talk a little bit about music and poetry. But tell me a little bit for our audience who doesn't know you. How did Melinda Palacio get started as a poet?
I really got started here in Santa Barbara. As you know, David, I've taken one of your classes here, and taken classes from several of our previous poet laureates here, and it's just a city that inspired me. And I started off in journalism, and before that in studying literature. But at some point, I decided that instead of studying literature, I wanted to create it, to create it, and with journalism, instead of writing about people who are doing things, I wanted to do something. Yeah. So that's it's just. It all came together in this beautiful city.
Well, I think of a journalist eye always looking for details and trying to explain who, what, why, when, where. I mean, we poets do the same sort of thing too, don't you think?
Yes, yes, and you also. We write. We both write for the Independent now.
Yeah, that's right.
As a poet laureate, I have the column, the Poetry Connection. I talk about what it's like to be poet laureate, and I also invite poets to send in their poems. That there's an email, poetry@independent.com.
Okay, so people can go online and take a look at that.
So, and it's been nice hearing from different members of the community, and I think that was the main reason for having this Poetry Connection, is to really connect with the community and to feature people that aren't often in the spotlight.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that we know that there can be a little circle of poets, but there are a lot of people out there, which I think that's great.
Yes.
So one of the things that you do when you are applying to be the Poet Laureate is you kind of set out some things that you'd like to achieve over the course of the 2 years of the term. What were some of the things that you were trying to do?
Yes, I wanted to support. I'm going to support poetry in public places, and I wanted to have a more. I wanted to make sure that more people were included in readings, and so I'm working with the library, and we're setting up. I'm going to hop on their bus. They have an on-the-go van,
Right.
and I will be joining some of the locations that are just wild locations, like Shoreline Park.
Right.
And I'll read poetry, and I'll also bring my guitar and play some songs that are based on my poems.
Right. So you'll just be in the van and then appearing.
Yeah, I think the way I distinguish my time as laureate is I'm a more public, the more public laureate, because we've had a time of intense, isolation.
Right. Necessarily, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's an exciting time to be poet laureate, to get out there and bring in more people into our poetry world.
Right.
And so I'm very excited about that. I also want to include different voices and just make our communities stronger by supporting many programs that are already in place also that
Right.
support poetry in public places.
Right. Well, let's hear a poem from you. You're our poet laureate, so we can't let you get away without reading some poems.
Oh, all right. There, although I've been told that my inauguration was the most attended, the room at City Hall was packed, but I'm sure there are several people that didn't get there, and so I want to read the poem that I read to
Sure.
the
Your installation poem.
yeah,
I think they call it,
yes, the installation poem. Santa Barbara is a poem. One winter, she shows off like a child playing dress-up in a white cape. From the ocean, admire her gentle powdered peaks, a rare dusting. Rejoice as water droplets turn to hail, to snow, a rarity in Aztlan, Shumash land impossible to reach when mud or fire threatens. Evergreen pear blossoms fall like feathers, peaceful and soft. A slight breeze on a jacaranda and it rains purple. Add leaves, golden hands, sometimes bright red, and it's a fiesta, nature's party. Coast live oaks grow twisted, rooted like guardian angels. In the wind, king palms sway, drop fruit from a canopy of prickly crowns. A blessing, shrouds of gray clouds hide the sky, and I put hands in the earth, pull weeds and prune roses. Stay still as a rufous hummingbird motors past my ears. Walk at dusk and the moon rises over Sycamore Canyon. Wait for the twinkling. Greet the archer and the seven sisters. Santa Barbara, eres un poema. Speaking Spanish in Santa Barbara means home. Negates every time someone told me to go back where I came from. I was born in this golden state, 100 miles south of this paradise. Santa Barbara, you are a poem. It's easy to want it all in this idyllic land. In my neighborhood, known as San Roque, fruit rolls down. Limes, oranges, persimmons, avocados course around a cul-de-sac named Lucinda. When I meet her, the woman named after the street, she offers me flowers. My neighbor calls to her young daughter, tells her to bring a sprig of rosemary from the box marked free, a year-round bounty, an abundance of treasures from the land soured by our inability to provide an Eden for all, housing, mental health services, jobs for all who flock to this land we call home. Santa Barbara is a poem.
I love it. Love the ending. You know, have you been interviewed by Nick Walsh yet from the Independent? So when I was just inaugurated, he grilled me for like 45 minutes over the telephone. And what he was really trying to get me to do was to say, what do you think could be better about Santa Barbara? And you touched on that there at the end of your poem. Tell me a little bit about this kind of a push and pull. You're representing the best of the city, but you're also, I think, kind of an implicit person who's critiquing it, right?
Yes, and that's something that I do in my work as a poet. You know, it's I bring in issues of social justice, issues of our world. It's not just all,
lemon trees,
lemon trees
Right,
and
yeah.
lollipops,
Right,
yeah.
right.
But this poem is also my love letter to the city.
Right.
But it's something we can't ignore. Seeing our homeless, but it's also such a big problem.
Well, yeah, what to do? I mean, I think that was one of the things that Nick was asking me. What are you, David, going to do about the unhoused population of Santa Barbara? And I didn't really have an answer. And I don't know that. I mean, is there something that we poets can do?
We can work with the city to help them raise money to continue the tiny house
efforts, yeah, right.
project. But I don't know. It's a longer question, but there are even amongst us, there are poets that are homeless. There are artists that are homeless. And the housing situation with all of the units in Goleta, being evicted in that one big housing complex. So there is a crisis. I don't know how to fix it. I'm not in politics, but I think it's important to acknowledge it and because it's
there.
Yeah.
Well, let me switch gears from there. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was writing poems and then also writing music. And you were telling me before the cameras were rolling that you picked up the ukulele and the guitar and you were looking at transforming poems you had already written into songs. Is that right?
Well, it's what I'm doing is I'm writing companion songs. For the poems.
Right.
So I'm not looking to. When I'm writing a song it's complete own entity. It's not putting music to the poem.
But is it the same subject matter?
It's the same. It's the poem. It's the same poem, but in the song form, and which has a different rules, different formats.
Right.
You need that kind of this catchy hook.
Right.
And it just happened that I had a breakthrough in I wrote a song, and so I kind of reverse engineered it and wrote a poem
to go with it.
based on the song.
Right.
And so this is a new project of mine. I know you're a musician also.
Yeah, when I'm thinking with songwriting that there's a certain pithiness that you can get out of a lyric. And also you can cheat a lot by singing, one syllable can go a long way. But I guess I feel like it's hard not to lose some of the subtlety of a poem because we have a little bit more room to work in that medium. What do you think?
Well, I think that's why I wanted to create a companion piece, what I'm calling a companion piece, so that there's nothing that's lost in the poem and there's nothing that's lost in the song. They each have their own strengths. And then when I read the poem and then play the song, then people can hear this kind of the similar motifs or the theme and so that's been exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear another poem.
Okay. David, you invited me to write a poem for our botanic garden.
Yes, we're both big fans. Right?
So this one is published in Ironwood.
Ironwood, our
Yeah.
semi-annual magazine.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. A visit to the botanic garden. Wander without a map, plan, or name tag. Unlike the bees who hive by a white sign, bees working, abejas trabajando. Out of an oval opening in a coastal oak, an ecstasy of bees exits. Their zigzags draw me closer, and I wonder, how brave would I have to be to put my hand in the tree's crevice, extract hard-earned sweetness? I mind my manners. Last year's sting lingers, as most wounds do. I love the honeybees and leave them to their work. Enter the raised courtyard. A young mother feeds her baby. Pale breast in hand, she smiles as her older daughter frolics free. I circle back towards the grove of redwoods, renewed in the stillness of a forest bath. A towhee's song sets the world straight. Soon other voices join joyous, goldfinches, orioles, sparrows, as if to say, all's well in the world today.
I love that. Well, you know, I'm thinking, I think all the poet laureates of Santa Barbara have had some connection with nature, but I think Sojourner, Kincaid Roll, and Paul Willis especially of our, and maybe Enid Osborne as well too, really have focused in on that. And it sounds like that's kind of been one of your things that you're going to be looking at is the natural world.
Oh, yes. Walking through the garden, I just love that little sign that they have. So when I said that they're the bees who hive by a white sign, there really is a sign that says bees working. I think Enid talked about, I think
She
she's
did talk about bees, yeah, that's right, yeah.
a beekeeper, or I'm not sure if she was a beekeeper, but
She's certainly concerned about the life of bees, yeah,
yes,
for sure.
that was
yeah.
it. She's concerned about the life of bees. And I have several friends who are beekeepers. I've considered, you know, but I have been stung by bees. So
Yes,
it's not,
not necessarily.
that kind of like, I think I'll just
appreciate them from afar.
appreciate them from afar. Yeah.
Well, let's hear. We only have about 10 minutes left, and I want people to hear your poems. So,
okay.
Can you grace us with another one, and whether you can give us a little backdrop about what it's about?
I brought this poem to acknowledge that it's June is Pride Month.
Right. We're taping in June of 2023, right?
Yes. Latino Queer Night. When we dance, we both lead. My tias laugh when I tell her I don't know how to dance. Not every song's a cumbia. We feel the sas beat in our bellies, but our four left feet tangle, swivel in too close because that's where our hearts long to be. Who cares that we both lead, that our pant legs meet at the same crease? Our shoes don't care whose foot takes the first awkward step. Music slows smooth, our feet find peace. Prince rains purple a toda máquina. The next time is faster, something from 2 decades ago. We know that dance, our dance. We tilt back our heads and moonwalk, eyes closed, our slick chests, his hairy, mine a slippery mop of sweat, find each other. In this light, music pounding, hands uplifted, no one cares that 2 fine mariposas and 4 left feet spread wings and dance.
Well, that's a great one, Melinda. I love how you're able to evoke this kind of transitory experience of dancing in these images that are really permanent, and the creases right next to each other. That's a really finely observed poem.
Oh, thank you.
So let's hear another one.
Okay. So this is getting a little bit more of a serious topic.
Okay.
And ICE detention, Tornillo, Texas. Strange hands spoon feed a hungry baby. Lice fall out of her hair like stardust. The girl is my daughter. The girl is your daughter. The girl is ours. No more food for the baby girl. Her celestial call becomes earthen. She turns into a pig. When all the children morph into swine, their puckered lips turn to snouts inside hell's version of Wonderland. Then and only then did they bust open walls that separated them from their parents. Our eyes go dark.
Nice. People may have been, as they've been watching us, like, what are these two books back here? Can you give us a little quick overview of Ocotillo Dreams and How Fire is a Story Waiting?
Yes, Ocotillo Dreams, this segues well from the poem because it's a novel about immigration. It's about the 1997 immigration sweeps in Arizona. So it's now historical.
Right.
You know? How Fire is a Story Waiting, that's my very first poetry book, complete collection. You know, the first, I guess the first would be the chapbook, Folsom Lockdown. But this one is my first full-length poetry book, and it's now sold out, and Tia Chucha Press is reprinting it. So it's in reprint, and the title poem, I had gotten, it has such long legs, you know, it was the first poem that I wrote here in Santa Barbara. Right. And so it's the title poem to the book, and it's now a song.
Yeah, as a friend of mine says, you got a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah, mileage, yeah.
Well, we just have about 5 or 6 minutes left. I do want to go back to the novel and ask you, is there some kind of crossover process where your poetry is strengthened by your prose and vice versa?
I think the strength comes from really distilling language in poetry. I started writing the novel before writing the poems, but then I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought I need to try something in a smaller chunk.
Right,
so then I wrote short story, and I said, I still don't know what I'm doing. I need to, find something that's in an even more distilled and smaller chunk. Then I started writing poetry, and that just helped me start walking. Yeah.
Was it a long process to write the novel?
Yes, I'm still. I think I finished my second novel, but it's it's been all this time. It's something that the novels I kind of let marinate longer. There's so many moving parts that can change, and all of a sudden you could follow one character or one theme.
Right.
And what I love about poetry is that you can sit down and really feel satisfied when you can complete a poem.
In a single setting,
yeah. As opposed to an 80,000 word manuscript.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, with 4 minutes left, I'm getting you back to your poems. Let's hear at least one more, maybe two, if we have time.
Okay. Nocturnal Nescience. Last night I heard the owl again. A judge without her parliament communes with a dove. She holds fast to her power line, not meaning to lock a feathered eye on me. Me. There is much to mourn this orange-streaked morn. You. Insert any name. Her encoded verdict delivered to a mourning dove, back and forth coos, interspersed by knowing hoots. Comfort in the universal language of birds comes without a price, gratitude. You, no longer roaming the earth. Me, guilty, awake at night, craving a crispy wing. I remember a raw truth. I never told you how much I loved you.
That's great. So, in our last couple of minutes, what advice would you give to poets? And for instance, maybe we could start there. How did that poem come to be?
Oh, well, I wanted to talk about this. Our previous poet laureate, Emma Trellis, she started a project called the Poetry Walk, and this poem came out of that project.
So there's sometimes exercises, things that you can do. I mean, sometimes we think of poetry just coming out of the skies, but often for us poets, it's an assignment or something like that.
Yeah, or a writing prompt. I really like the idea of always keeping a little notebook in your back pocket or in your purse, because you might hear something that makes you pay attention.
Right.
And you'll write it down, or you'll think of something at night. You'll remember, like, oh, I used to do this as a child, and I haven't thought about that in a long time. And just jot it down. Prompts are a great way to sit down and start if you don't know where to start.
Right.
But my biggest advice is to keep a journal, and you don't have to write every day, but just, be a little consistent. Maybe remember, oh, I have this journal and I haven't written, open it and look. I kind of feel, I often look into my notebooks for ideas, because I have all kinds of things scribbled on there, and I'm kind of old-fashioned. I do keep my journal and notebooking is on pen and paper, and it's in a little booklet. Yeah, I'm sure you've had people come on here and read from their phones.
Yes,
Here I am with my
not very
paper.
But I'm gonna leave that. We just have a few seconds left, and just say thank you so very much for coming on the show again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for this repeat honor.
The Creative Community is a co-production of TVSB in Santa Barbara and CAPS Media in Ventura. I'm your host, David Starkey, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.